Hi, I'm David Allison. I'm the founder of the Valuegraphics project, and I'm going to spend a few minutes with you and explain values thinking. Values thinking, like design thinking, is a simple process to make decisions about all kinds of different things. But unlike design thinking that keeps design at the center of the decision-making process, we're going to keep shared human values at the center of the decision-making process. Therefore, values thinking. Now I'm going to walk you through a little bit about our database and our research and what Valuegraphics is all about really quickly, and then I'm going to explain the values thinking steps that you can follow to make a decision about whatever you might need to make a decision about, and I'll give you a quick example of how it all works. So that's what's ahead in the next few minutes. It's important to remember that we've built the world's very first database of what everybody on the planet actually cares about, what our shared human values are. We've done this with 600,000 surveys, and if you're a stats geek, you're going to like this next sentence. It's a random, stratified, statistically representative sample of the population of planet Earth with 3.5% level of accuracy and a 95% level of confidence, which makes it more accurate than you need for a PhD from Harvard. And with this database, we can figure out exactly what any group of people, what their shared human values are, so that we understand how they're making decisions, what's the root cause of their behaviors, and where their feelings and emotions are coming from. Now, what's interesting is, after doing this work all around the world, we found that there's only 56 core human values. There's only 56 things that could be responsible for anything that a group of people, or an individual for that matter, anything they do, any of their behaviors, any of their decisions, any of their feelings or their emotions. So that's not that many. Now it's just a matter of figuring out which ones are at play for your target audience, for your stakeholder group, for your employees or potential employees, so that you understand what it is they're listening for and how to best engage with them around the things they care about the most. Valuegraphics layers on top of demographics and psychographics to build what we call a three-legged stool of audience insight. Three-legged stool is fairly sturdy, right? Demographics are still necessary to help you understand who the people are in a target audience, but all they do is give you a description of what they're all about. There may be male, there may be female, there may be rich, there may be poor, there may be young, there may be old. Those things don't tell us anything about who people are and how they make decisions. Psychographics are another kind of audience insight that often gets layered on top of demographics. Psychographics are a record of past behaviors and feelings and emotions. How did a group of people feel about this thing last time we asked? How many of those things have they purchased? How often do they behave in a certain way? All of that information is not demographic. It's about past behaviors and decisions, and it's useful and interesting, but it also doesn't tell us how to get folks to engage with us, and how to get their interest, and how to convince them that what we'd like them to do is in their own best interest. So if we layer all three of these things on top of each other, we have a really good foundation for understanding any group of people, how to engage with them, and how to move the needle the way we'd like to move the needle. So we need demographics to describe a target audience, psychographics to record past behaviors, but until you also have valuegraphics, you won't know how to engage them and get them to do the things you'd like them to do. So, in a way, it's like having the operating system for a target audience, for any group of people. Once you know their valuegraphics, you know how they're going to behave next. So let's talk about values thinking. Here's a quick overview, Values Thinking 101. As I've said, it's like design thinking, a super simple process for making decisions. It's 5 steps, and it keeps shared values at the center of everything you do, and it operationalizes those values that you know are most important to them. Step number 1, you really do have to write down what it is you're trying to solve. It's amazing how many groups dive into a values thinking process without agreement on what's the question, what's the issue on the table today. The next thing is you have to understand who you're talking to. This is where demographics and psychographics come into play. It may be very important to know that you're talking to women who are 18 to 24 years old. It may not be very important to understand that. You have to be careful and judicious about how much information you include here. If it's not germane to the issue, if it has nothing to do with what it is you're trying to solve for, then just leave it out. If it may have some impact on the question or the issue on the table, then of course, those demographic and psychographic facts should be pulled to the forefront and considered as we move forward through this process. The next step, this is where valuegraphics come into play. Why would they listen to you? Why would this group of people do things? Why would they want to be engaged, and why would they want to be part of whatever it is you're trying to convince them to be part of? So what are we trying to solve for? Who are we talking to? Why do they make the decisions that they make? Now we sit down and do some pretty old-fashioned brainstorming and see if we can't find a place where those three circles overlap, because that middle juicy piece, that's values thinking. You're coming up with solutions based on who they are, how they behave, why they behave, and then starting to think about what it is you might be able to do from a strategic perspective, a tactical perspective. It depends on what the issue is, truly. So finding a way to get those three circles to align, values thinking is what comes out in the middle. And of course, once you've determined a great course of action using this values thinking series of circles, this process, and of course you have to start implementing and understand where and when are you going to go and do this. So here's a nice short version of that previous slide. It's what, who, why, how, where, and when. If you just think about those questions and answering those questions in that sequence, then you're using values thinking and you're keeping values at the center of the decisions you make about how to engage with the people you want to engage. Here's an example. Brunello Cucinelli is a really high-end fashion brand, really high-end fashion brand. This is expensive stuff. Doesn't really matter so much. For an example, if you were in the Cucinelli marketing team, you'd want to know more. But every audience that we profile, including the ones that we're going to do for you, that we have done for you, it always breaks down into segments. So in this case, for Cucinelli prospects, people who have yet to buy something from Cucinelli but really desperately want to, one of the segments there is a group of 17% of their population. 17% of their prospect audience fit into this segment that we call influenced loyalists. Now here's some valuegraphic information about prospects overall for Cucinelli versus those influenced loyalists. Look how different they are from each other. In the white, that's all prospects for Cucinelli. In teal, those are the values that rise to the top in that list of 56 different possible values that are unique to that particular subsegment of this audience. And if you look at the delta, look at the spread between things like relationships, loyalty, personal responsibility, health and well-being. These are very different kinds of people. So it's important to understand who you're talking to before you try and figure out what you're going to do. Now, I know what the question is that we're going to try and solve today, so I think that out of this series of values that I could use to engage and influence this group, these are the ones that are going to be most useful to me. Experiences, relationships, these people really want to have more and better and more robust relationships. Experiences, I kind of glossed over that. They're really interested in having experiences. They don't want to go to the same restaurant over and over and over again. They want to try new things. Loyalty, that's a really great one to see in any kind of audience that you're dealing with. Once they have determined that you are worthy of their loyalty, it's going to be really hard to convince them that they shouldn't be loyal anymore. We love seeing loyalty show up in a profile for any group of people, regardless of the sector we're talking about. These people also, compared to the all prospects audience, they value possessions more. This is going to, in the context of a retail fashion brand like this, it's going to mean packaging is going to be more important. How you take things away from the store, how things arrive if they're being delivered to you. What's the ribbon look like and the tissue and all of that kind of stuff. How is this object made to be an important object? That'll be important to people who value possessions as highly as this segment does. And then health and well-being is an interesting one as well. Compared to the prospect audience overall, this particular sector, this particular segment, very, very concerned about their personal health and well-being. That would be a great trigger that we can use to help them to get engaged with them and get them to participate in what we'd like them to participate in. So if we remove those values that we've chosen to be useful and put them on their own slide, it comes out like this: experiences, relationships, loyalty, possessions, and health and well-being. Let's apply these in a values thinking scenario. Let's say the issue on the table is we're sent to, Mr. Cucinelli has said, you guys plan a celebratory event. I want to invite all of our best customers and suppliers together and have a celebration of what an amazing couple of years we've had. So now who are we talking to? Very specifically, our job is to plan this event in a way that's going to get that segment, the influenced loyalists, very excited. Now, if we were going to spend some more time together, I could tell you all kinds of stuff about them demographically and psychographically, and this is where that would fit in. Just trust me, we know all that stuff, and it's going to influence the way we put this event together and use the values thinking process. Remember, the next circle in that map I showed you of using values thinking is to understand why. Why would they do what we would like them to do? Well, we know that these are the tools that we've chosen from that valuegraphic profile that we believe are going to be most useful to help us answer the question of how do we plan a celebratory event for this particular segment called Influenced Loyalists. We're going to use experiences, possessions, relationships, health and well-being, and loyalty as the triggers to figure out what we're going to do. So here's an idea. This may not be the best idea in the world, but it's a great way to illustrate what values thinking can lead to. So instead of a normal celebratory event in the high-end fashion retail world, which would probably involve some champagne and a reception in a store or a fancy place with some shrimps on sticks and a little bit of music in the background, we're going to go and we're going to rent a football stadium. We're going to have all of our best customers, our suppliers, our friends, the people who work for us, they're all going to get together. There'll be beautiful catering. There'll be a whole bunch of really healthy choices and stuff to eat and walk around and get to meet each other and talk with new people, make new friends, reacquaint yourself with old friends, all that kind of stuff. It's a way for us to thank you for your loyalty and show in a very visible way how loyal we are to our best customers, which for this segment of prospects will be very appealing because loyalty is a big deal to them. And as you leave, oh, I forgot to mention, we're going to invite all the football players from the stadium to be there as well. So what an experience to actually be hanging out with the football players, eating healthy, well food, maybe even kicking the ball around a little bit, which is also about health and well-being, meeting all these cool new people who are Cucinelli fans. That's about relationships and this obvious display of loyalty on behalf of the company. And you walk away at the end of it. This is the pièce de résistance with a Cucinelli soccer ball. And it's signed by all the football players. It's made specially for you, maybe even has your name gold stamped on it. So you have a possession. You've had an amazing experience unlike anything you've ever experienced before. You've got new relationships and strengthened relationships. It's been about health and well-being, and it's been based on this expression of loyalty, this display of loyalty from the brand. Now, this may be a terribly impractical idea, but the point is, we wouldn't have come up with this idea or anything similar to it unless we knew what the values were for the audience of people we're trying to engage with. We know that they will respond to this because we know with more accuracy than you need for a PhD that these values are their triggers. So you see how we would have normally come up with a fairly boring, common kind of event. Instead, we were able to custom tailor something that we know these people will love and respond to, because what we value determines all our decisions, behaviors, and emotions. So there's an idea based on values thinking for the Cucinelli brand. I hope that's been useful. Here's a smart, simple way to think about values thinking. It's really just finding the connecting points between what you've got and what it is they're looking for. That's it. I'm David Allison from the Valuegraphics Project. You can follow me on LinkedIn or visit our website. There's all kinds of fun stuff there. Thanks for listening.